Hi and welcome to this doll wig tutorial. I know the video is something you're not used to on my channel, but I don't care. I like to make different stuff, so if you want to learn how to make a wig like this, stay tuned. It's easy, you don't have to use a lot of fancy stuff. I think it's stuff everyone has at home. So let's get into it. You need a doll without hair, cling wrap, a long brush, pencil or stick, gauze, elastics, sharp scissors, a comb, it has to be fine-toothed, some tape, white glue or PVA glue, yarn, obviously, and if you don't like to get your fingers dirty, some tweezers. Cut strands of yarn that are the same length, and we are going to pair them in groups of 3. Keep in mind that yarn has short fibers, so you have to cut very long strands. They can't be the same length as your desired dolled hair length. Now we are going to tie a knot around the brush. Let's watch it again, but slower. It's easy, very simple. And you have to do this with every single trio of strands until you have this. Now we have to undo the strands and separate the 3 strands that create the braid for the yarn strands by hand. It's tedious. It's really, really tedious, and you have to do it one by one. Otherwise, if you start brushing without untangling, it's going to break and become really, really short, and you waste a lot of yarn. And we don't want to do that. So, as you can see, I start brushing and combing only once I've undone the braids of the yarn. And you can see how it's breaking. It breaks. In reality, I'm combing really slow. This is sped up. And it will break because yarn is made of short fibers, you can't help it. But if you untangle them first, you can save a lot of length. Don't throw away the excess yarn that you remove when combing. Use it for pillows and to create padding on doll clothing. After combing through every fiber, you have to keep detangling and trim the ends because they are really, really uneven and ugly. As you can see here, I'm combing through the last strands, and once that's done, once every single fiber is loose, you trim. You give it a good trim to make sure the ends are even. Now let's comb again because we have to fix this yarny texture to create wedges like this on top that resemble real hair. For that, we have to comb and comb again and then wash it with hot water and regular hair conditioner. Just your cheapest conditioner. Once you have washed it, let it dry really, really flat and comb while it's wet. After drying, you can straighten it. I don't have hair straightener at home, so I used heavy books. It works to straighten it and make sure that it's flat and nice and it looks like really straight hair. So this is the texture, and as you can see, it's really silky and shiny, but uneven. Now let's make wedges. I'll show you how in a moment. First, yeah, you guessed it, more combing. Separate, take out, whatever you want to say, one of the strands and push the knot to the very top with your fingers while holding the yarn, the combed yarn, to cut it from the knot. Save the knot for later. I will show you in a different video why and how I use the knots. Now to create the wedges, you need to lay a piece of tape on your working surface. I use my table, and you lay a really thin strip of glue. Now you take the yarn and you gently push the yarn to the sides to make it flatter and more wide, to widen it, and lay it on the glue. And gently press down so the glue can seep through and it soaks on the glue. Now we have to secure the top part of the wedge. So we take the glue and we lay another thin amount, a small amount of glue. And this is the part where I use my fingers. Some of you may want to use gloves, but this glue is non-toxic. It's for kids and crafts. And sorry for blocking the view on the camera, but you basically tap with your finger to make sure everything spreads evenly and the top of the yarn strip is all glued and covered and soaked. Tap as much as you need. Don't be afraid. Tap it until every single fiber is covered in glue. This is the result you want. this is the look you want. So when it's dry, the glue forms a thin layer like this one, and it's so easy to just peel it off the tape like this. And as you can see, it's ugly, so you need to trim it. Trim it so the edge is even, really straight and flat, and don't be afraid to cut a big chunk of glue. Trim the sides too. Sometimes I like to round the corners, but I usually do that once I'm doing my wig, and you'll probably trim even more once you're making the wig. Comb it again, and if you see pieces of glue, stray pieces of glue, remove them with your hair. Sorry, with your hand. As you can see, it bends and it's flexible, which is important for the wig. Now let's make the wig cap. For that you have to wrap your doll in plastic, in cling wrap, and secure the cling wrap to her neck with an elastic. Now you have to put the gauze on her head and secure it with another elastic. I suggest you wrap and secure way under the line of the real wig you are going to cut later. It's better to have an excess than to have to add later something that's really hard to add and correct. She has to look like she's going to cross the desert. And now we are going to just pour a lot of glue and lather that glue on top of the cranium, on top of the head. Spread it with your finger, work it on the gauze fibers, and make sure it goes on every single little hole and covers everything up to the elastic. Don't leave any gap on the edges close to the elastic. Once you've made sure there's glue everywhere, and I mean everywhere, and there's no a single gap without glue on that wig cap, you let it dry, and then you give it a second coat, a second layer of glue. Once the second layer or third, whatever you need, is dry, you have to draw on the wig cap the shape of the cap and make sure you leave room for the ears. I'm drawing right now the shape of the fringe, some guidelines that will serve me as guides to glue wedges. I will probably ignore them, heads up, just a heads up, but they seem useful enough. I do that for all my wigs. I draw the partition line for the middle hair and then the wig cap shape. I don't suggest you skip drawing the shape of the wig cap and the space for the ears, because it's really hard to wing it and just eyeball it. It's not easy to eyeball it. You have to draw it while it's on her head, on the doll's head. Time to peel off the elastic. If you have added many layers of glue, the elastic will be stuck under a crust of dry glue, so you have to pull really hard. And pull, don't be afraid, nothing will break. Just pull, remove it, ta-da! Now you have to pull the gauze, remove it from the head, so you are able to cut it and shape it properly. Sometimes you have to make adjustments, sometimes the guides are not 100% accurate, and sometimes they are, so it's a matter of trying, putting the wig back on the head while the wig cap, while you're cutting it and shaping it. As you can see, the wig fits, so the next step is creating the wig and gluing the wedges. Let's get into it. First, you have to sort the wedges. This step takes me a long time. I have to feel them, see how long they are, choose them for every single part of the head. And here I was trying to choose one for the fringe, and I settled on this one because it was thick enough on the front, so when I reshaped it into a fringe, it would look nice and full, not like it was patchy alopecia or something like that. And then you see, I ignored the guidelines completely. I straight up glued it on top of the head, on the front like an emo kid, and I started combing. Once you glue the wedges, you have to press down to help it keep the shape. About how to pick the side that you have to glue onto the wig cap, you have to choose the ugly side, the side that's glued on top against the tape, the one I showed in this image. That's the one you want to lather in glue and press on top of the wig cap. Now, if we are going to glue pieces that go on the diagonal side. You have to cut them into the desired length and shape and round the corners slightly. Otherwise, everything accumulates and you create bumps. We don't want bumps on the wig. We want a smooth surface. You see, I just rounded the corner to create a neat junction between two wedges. You press so it stays in place and do the same on the other side. Repeat the process around the corner, press, and do the same again, following the same circular pattern. You round the corners and cut the wedge. If there's an excess of gluey edge and it's too big, too hard, you have to cut it. I'm sorry I stayed out of camera, but that's what I was doing. I was refining the edge. You add a small amount of glue, you don't need too much, you don't want it to make a mess, and press. And repeat the same process again, following the circular shape until we arrive to the middle part. Always combing. Between every step, I like to comb and press the wedge so it stays in place and every single wedge merges neatly when you comb. Now we are adding smaller wedges that we have to cut and shape to fill the gaps. And you keep doing the same thing until you have something that looks like this. Now we are going to make the middle part. This is a very important step. If you do it wrong, you risk having the wedges exposed and visible, and it looks really ugly, honestly. We have to take a piece of wedge that is the same length of the central part that we have to hide and glue it on the opposite direction because you want to fold it like this. For this part, I suggest you try to position and bend the wedges without any glue first. It's really important that you get the feeling of how it has to bend before gluing it down, otherwise you can make a mess. And now I'm going to glue it. Remember to do it on the opposite direction because we have to fold it so the yarn will hide the wedge. And let it dry. If you have to trim, trim it. While the glue is drying, press down and start folding it in order to hide the seam, the wedge, the gluey part. And as you can see, there's a bald spot that we have to hide, doing the same thing on the opposite side. We have to glue another wedge. It has to be put on backwards so we can fold it and hide the edge of the wedge that has hardened glue. As you can see, we are gluing it with the hair that goes on the opposite direction so we can fold it like this. And now let's glue it and fold. Sometimes you need to insist and press with your fingers so it stays in place, but don't worry because the yarn is soft and accepts any position, any shape and form that you give it. If you see there are bald spots, like in this case, just glue another piece of yarn. I have to glue a tiny one because there are some places where there's thinning, where the hair is thin, and we don't want a doll that has thin hair. So in this case, we are going to glue this big piece after shaping it and hide the thinning spots. Now let's round the corners and thin it, cut the wedge to make it extra thin because we don't want any extra volume, and let's glue it. Now we have to gently press the wig with our hand while combing to make sure each strand of yarn, hair, whatever you prefer, merges and mixes together to give the appearance of a natural head of hair, not just some kind of messy, cheap wig. And to style the bangs, the fringe, we have to first comb through it and then start really conservatively cutting. You don't want to cut too much. I grabbed my hair scissors to trim the fringe and make sure that the eyes show and it looks nice. It doesn't look like she's emo. And this is the end result with the cling wrap on. and this is how it looks without the cling wrap. I'm really happy with the results, and I hope you appreciate this tutorial and you learned something. If you made it this far, thank you so much. My next doll wig video will be about how to make really short hair on wigs. So stay tuned. Thank you for watching. Bye!